So Ahmed here from SkyLedge. It's been a really interesting night. We've seen a whole range of interesting solutions that address a range of different problems within smart waste. And I think it's fair to say that, if you think about smart waste, there's a whole number of pieces that need to come together to create essentially an integrated solution that's practical, feasible, and actually usable for the people in the council and the residents that need to interact with these different solutions. And so let's imagine for a moment that you're a worker in the council or you're a resident and you need to integrate with, you need to sort of work with a whole bunch of different systems that look different, feel different, and so I guess have different needs essentially to actually get your job done. That's actually quite difficult. So SkyLedge is essentially about how do we bring all this together to create real-time situational awareness, and through that sort of improve our approach to smart waste management. Essentially, the problem we're trying to solve is, the yet another system syndrome. How do we actually sort of, onboard sort of new systems and actually work with existing systems in our council to make them all work together really seamlessly? So let's actually get to sort of just how would this actually look like in real life? Um, so initially, our thought was, let's connect QR codes to bins. That gives us sort of basic unit of analysis, the ability to actually understand, which bin belongs to which resident. Off the back of that, we're able to do a whole bunch of different things. We know we can understand waste patterns. We can actually dive into sort of, I guess, issues around anomalies, contamination, and actually a lot more. So essentially, the end game that we're working towards is a scenario where so different people, different teams within Canterbury Bankstown Council have different windows into things that are actually relevant to them. And actually, SkyLedge essentially is integrating with all these different amazing solutions that actually do very different things, but actually come together to create sort of consolidated sort of context. So if we actually just think about what does real-time awareness look like, just imagine for a moment, a citizen calls and says, hey, look, someone's actually double dipped in my bin. We're able to actually go into a control room. We call these things that you see here control rooms, and actually we're able to actually drill into a specific address and actually sort of determine whether or not there are unusual patterns. Is there, for example, a case of a whole bunch of bins, that have been unusually filled up this week, when on average, that's not usually, that's not the case. Are we able to sort of, for example, determine that because we've actually missed a pickup, we've actually identified that bin actually sitting somewhere else because we have the cameras on the truck. They're able to actually determine that, hey, this bin that was supposed to be at this address is actually somewhere else. And all of this essentially can be done through SkyLedge. So SkyLedge is an application enablement platform, which basically means we can actually create specific use cases to deal with specific problems. Or we could actually, this could be simply a window into other systems that are actually doing the underlying work. And what you have is just a beautiful way of actually bringing all this information together in a way that's actually actionable and meaningful to end users. And so imagine you want to drill in. So this is, I guess, what you see here is at a glance. At a glance, on the left-hand side, you see events that are rolling through in real time, telling you sort of different things that are happening within your council. We're actually able to drill in and actually sort of look at patterns at a specific address or even at a macro level across the council. So we could potentially see contamination alerts, anomaly detection alerts, and a whole range of insights that we can actually customize to work around our needs as a council. The other thing here is we can actually sort of think about sort of what other types of insights we want. These insights could be around, for example, double dipping and be able to sort of drill into that and see which addresses seem to be exhibiting unusual behaviors. It could be about sort of detecting contamination and again drilling into that to see where this is happening. But more importantly, it's not just about the visibility. Visibility is one part of this. The most important thing here is actually being able to take action. So that action could be as simple as sending an SMS to a resident. It can actually be as complicated as, for example, requesting a bin replacement, if that's actually what someone's calling in about, and being able to actually send that off for someone else's review, approval, and ultimately, taking that action. And so what you see here is actually an example of how we can customize SkyLedge to very specific use cases. So in this case, a customer care person might be able to search for a specific address, and then off the back of that, get a 360-degree view of a resident. So this is where we can go way beyond smart waste, the ability to actually look at a 360 view of a resident, so their waste patterns, but then even potentially integrate with other systems, whether it's library, rates and payments, permits, inquiries, a whole range of issues in the one sort of experience that's actually leveraging all the existing platforms within the council and any other ones we onboard over time. So that's Skyledge in a nutshell. How realistic is this? We've already delivered this to Australia's largest container siloed operator. We're actually currently working with one of the world's largest waste organizations to actually deliver the solution. So we think this is achievable, and we're really excited about what we're able to do here with CB City. Thank you.
Thanks, Ahmed. Let's see what the judges have to say about that. Who's up? Yeah, Luther.
Quick one, Ahmed. Thank you very much for that. Looking at QR codes and the integration with bins, and we've talked about this before in other instances. What do you see as the biggest impediment to rolling out something like this? Because there's a lot of bins to be able to deal with, and paint or QR code, and each one having a peculiar QR code.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I guess a QR code example is a way to motivate the conversation. There are some serious logistical considerations around how we deploy that, especially across the number of bins we're talking about CB City. There are other alternatives. So from a Skyledge perspective, we're not actually necessarily fussed about the hardware technology we use. We could literally be using GPS-based technology on the trucks to actually infer the address at which we've actually sort of picked up a bin and detected whether or not there are contaminants. So I think for sure that there are some real logistical considerations to apply there, but we can actually think about alternative approaches.
So for you, then, it's the aggregation of the information that is key. Taking those feeds, you can take them from almost anybody else then.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Hi, Ahmed. Certainly looks really interesting, and I'd want to know a lot more. But I guess so. This is software really that you're focused on, aggregating that data, bringing it together. Is it a plug and play type solution? Have you looked at pre-built APIs that we could plug into, common systems that are out there? Just like to hear sort of a little bit more around that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Melissa. So we are a standards-based platform. So we actually welcome working with other platform providers. In no scenario would we, advocate for, hey, throw that out and reinvest in building stuff in Skyledge. So we use open APIs. We're standards-based. We absolutely have a plug-and-play model. So we could actually deploy an initial implementation of this with very minimal work and essentially use that as an innovation platform. So we're building on it over time. Absolutely.
And so do you does Skyledge play that role, or is that, for example, council buys this software and if they have the capability could go and design? Is that sort of what you're trying to achieve?
We support both. So it sounds like from the conversation we've had, you guys seem to have an amazing engineering team. So that is absolutely an approach where your team does the implementation and customization. The other approach is we would actually help with the implementation and customization, or frankly, could get a third party. So it's very much up to the council to sort of just let us know how they would like to approach this. We're passionate about design and code design, so we love the idea of at least being part of that process for how do we create an amazing, consistent, continuous experience. But it's really up to you guys how far you want to tap into that capability.
Got time for another question or another comment? Is this a good sign or a bad sign? I don't know. I can't read them. I can't read the body language over Zoom.
It looks great to me. I'm not sure I have any questions on a technical basis that would add much.
I'll throw in one more. One I think we all love: cost, or your models. The different models.
Yeah, so we're really creative with that. I mean, we can take a value-based selling approach. In other words, what's the benefit that we're looking to deliver jointly, and then essentially, it becomes a form of value sell, or alternatively, this is stock standard asset-based pricing. So number of bins times some sort of amount. Obviously, with the scale you're talking about, that it wouldn't be like $5 a bin. It would probably be cents. Yeah, so economies of scale do absolutely kick in.